In this video, I'm going to share some of my parent policies for the baseball and softball teams that I used to have at my baseball and softball academy. So we had travel teams, baseball and softball, and every year we tried to be really clear communicators to our parents and our players separately about what our expectations were. So in this video, I'm going to give you my parent policies and some of the things that we explicitly wanted to lay out so that everyone was on the same page. All right, so if you're a coach or an organization owner of a little league or a rec team, travel team, high level, low level, it doesn't matter. You want to have good communication with your parents. That is going to help ward off some of the mind reading and some of the problems that you'll face later if you don't start on a foot of good communication. Just like with the workplace, you want to onboard people, explain your company's values, and get everyone under the umbrella of how we do things here. So right off the bat, you want to communicate your core values and where you're coming from. So for us, for me and my former business partner, we were letting parents know, look, we want to help your kids become better ball players. We also want to help them become better people. So all of our policies trickle down from that. And some of the ones that maybe parents are like raising an eyebrow at, they're always coming from this place of making your kids better ball players and better people. So that was the first thing that we would lay out is why we are here and what we're doing and why we're doing all this, right? So one of my first policies, let me just jump into it, is keeping parents out of the dugout. And this is one that would like draw some ire sometimes. And here's what this looked like for us. Number one, we wanted parents, and we told them this, we want your kids to carry their gear. Mommy and daddy, don't drag your son or your daughter's bat bag from the parking lot to the dugout. They're going to carry their own gear if they play for us. And you might say, Dan, why do you make that a policy? Again, when we explain our core values, we want your kids to grow up strong, tough, and resilient. We want them to become, powerful, successful adults. And if you're coddling them and carrying their gear, that's not helping that goal. So again, when we talk about dugout policies, number one is kids carry their own gear. Number two, kids are responsible for missing, if they forget something, they're going to be held responsible. We know mom and dad have to help them pack and get all their stuff up. But you know what? It's a good life skill that kids learn to make a checklist. Do I have my glove? Do I have my water bottle? Do I have my both of my bats? Do I have my athletic cup if I'm a boy? Like, do we have all these things that are important that I need to make sure I have in my tournament? Or if we're traveling or we're local, whatever. So we want kids to say, number one, you're responsible for your things and you need to make a checklist and act like an adult. Whether you're 8 or 10 or 12, you can still say, what do I need for this trip, for this game, for class today, whatever it is. So we want to instill those policies. With our dugout policies, we also said, parents, you will not make contact with your kid during the game. That means no bringing them water bottles, no bringing Gatorades, no dropping off snacks, no walking over and whispering to them about their at bat or asking them when they're going to pitch. Once they're in our, in our family with our dugout, your job at that point as a parent becomes number one, cheerleader, number two, culture keeper of the other parents in the bleachers. But again, we don't want kids to be like running out every second inning looking for mom and dad saying, hey, I need another Gatorade. This is easily solvable. We tell our kids, look, how many Gatorades do you need a pack for a game? Make sure your water bottle is big enough and full enough. Make sure you bring a little cooler. Again, goes back to the checklist and helping them become independent, resilient adults. So this was one of our first things where it was very hands off. Hey, parents, don't carry their gear. Make sure your kid and you communicate on what they need, what's their checklist, and that they bring all their stuff. Obviously, if a kid forgets their water or they run out of water, we're not going to like hold them hostage where they can't go get water. But again, we just want to make sure when they're in the dugout, they're completely focused on the game, their teammates, and their coaches, and parents are not going to be breaking through that wall. So number two, we talked about parent culture in the bleachers. What does this look like? Communicating with other parents, with opposing teams. How are you going to approach your players? And how are you going to deal with umpires, right? So our overall thing was we want a recital atmosphere. This is what I would tell our parents. We want a recital atmosphere, which is you're not going to yell out to your kid how to play this game, no more than you would yell out the steps in a ballet recital, or yell out the notes that they're supposed to hit in a concert or an orchestra recital. Let your kids play the game themselves. You telling them what to swing at or when not to swing, or all that advice, it doesn't help. B, it's distracting, and C, it makes it way less fun for everyone, especially coaches and players. So we want parents in the stands. Their number one role is cheerleader. Their number two role is culture keeper. And again, that means they're there to make sure they're respectful of everyone else, that they carry the torch of our organization. Just like, the New York Yankees or the women's national soccer team. These are highly respected teams because not only how good they are, but because of the way they handle themselves. So parents are expected to be respectful of umpires, respectful of opponents, and just always be positive, or they can be quiet, right? You don't have to be a big rah-rah parent, but you do have to be respectful of everyone in the complex. And we know that as coaches, we can't be the principal, right? We're not going to go and have a conversation with every player and with every parent when they fall short. We need players to police themselves as well and say, hey, don't talk to our teammate that way. Like, pick him up, be a better teammate. We need players to carry the culture, and we need parents to do the same thing. So if someone's getting really grumbly and starting to become negative in the bleachers, hopefully there's some parents who are like, hey, come on, support the boys, stay positive, whatever. Hopefully that everyone as a whole is keeping our mission statement, our core values, our culture positive. The third thing that I would communicate in my parent policies was how we allocate playing time. So our organization, we were a higher level travel team, but that said, we were still all about development. Kids were not going to sit the bench all year, but also everyone was not going to play the same amount, right? So we kind of explained hey, the top, 4 or 5 players might play most of the innings, but they will sit. There'll be certain times. We had policies like if you're a starting pitcher, you're going to sit out the previous game. If you're a catcher, you're not going to be allowed to be a starting pitcher for arm health reasons. So we had policies that I won't get into all of them now, but we would lay out all these policies about playing time. Here's how we choose starters versus relievers. Here's how we construct our lineups. Here's in general a transparent look under the hood at how we get to these decisions, right? And so after that, the natural progression in this talk is, okay, and if you all have a problem with this, here's how we want you to go about it. Number one, we want players to come to us first. Now, if you're coaching a 9U team, that might not be the realistic first, line of defense, but it always can be, right? If you're open, say, hey, if your 9-year-old son wants to talk to me about the position they're playing, I'm going to be respectful and polite, and I want them to come talk with me. If you can make yourself very approachable, it becomes a lot easier no matter how old the player is. But again, really young kids, that becomes a little more difficult. And also often players don't know what they need, right? So as a parent, if you're like, hey, I really want to make sure my kid just plays lots of different positions, and they might not speak up about it, so you might not realize that they're unhappy only playing the outfield or only playing the infield, that might be a parent, conversation, and that's best had that way. That's totally fine. But we just want to make sure people understood what the order of operations were. So for our higher level teams at 13 and above, we also in general said, hey, here's how we want you to contact us. We don't want to talk after games. Give it some time to cool off, usually 24 or 48 hours. Please don't be texting us at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. We would also establish our boundaries and stuff like that. Because we don't want to get into a back and forth over text at 11 p.m. because a parent's upset about something that happened on the field. No one needs that. So all these are things that you want to outline early in the season so people, A, have an understanding of how to conduct themselves and what to do, and B, as a coach or the owner of an organization, you can then point back and say, hey, you signed this agreement. This is our team policies. I'm not going to respond to texts after, 9 p.m. or a game, right? You need to wait 24 hours. We spelled this out. So when you make policies clear, you can point back to them. And when someone falls short of team values, is screaming at an umpire from the stands, you can say, hey, this is not part of our mission. This is laid out. And then if you have to march down the road of discipline, or dismissing a player or family from a team, then you can do that when those policies are in place, right? And then also just being extremely clear about what things mean. So what does on time mean? Does on time mean arriving at the field at 4:59 for a 5 o'clock practice? Or does it mean that they're in their cleats and completely ready to go, glove in hand, bat in hand at 4:59, right? because those are very different things. Like, when are they late, right? Who's responsible for their lateness, right? If players drive, certainly they're responsible. If players don't drive and they're chronically late, how do we handle that, right? Do players get, punished for a parent's chronic lateness? These are all different things that you want to have a conversation with at the beginning of the season so people understand. The other big thing you want to make sure you lay out is reporting for injuries. So if a player has a little bit of elbow pain, I need to know about that as a coach, right? But if it's just like the tiniest little bit of a elbow itch, do I need to know about that right away? Like, what's the threshold? So it's just good to open up communication about this stuff, because what you don't want is, oh, hey, Johnny can't pitch today, coach. Sorry, I know he's supposed to start, but his elbow's been really bugging him for the last 3 weeks, and now it just got a little bit worse. It's like, well, if I had known about this 3 weeks ago, we could have figured this out, and I could have had, given some rest, pitched him in relief. Like, we could have done things. This happens quite a bit. So you want to make sure you let people know, do not keep injuries from us. Here's how I want to hear about injuries. Here's the threshold for hearing about an injury, right? There's lots of little aches and pains that go on in the course of a season, and not every little thing needs to come to the coach's attention, but people need to have some idea of like when it's a reportable thing, like, hey, your knee seems like it's bugging you, or you're limping a little bit, or it's been bothering you for 10 days, and even though it's not that painful, this might get worse. So like, let's tell coach. Like, it's hard to put an exact line on this stuff because pain is very subjective and it's different for different people. And, what a 9-year-old perceives as bad might be different than a 13-year-old versus a 17-year-old who maybe is a football player and has a really high pain threshold. So just having a conversation, even if it's not completely cut and dry, because this is a tough one, it just makes sense to have this out in the open. Like, hey, I need to, hey, we need to know. So just put in place, like, look, we're not going to penalize kids. We just want to make sure your kids are healthy and that we can also plan, because if I suddenly have a player that's injured, I want to try to get my ducks in a row. Maybe we need someone to sub in or whatever it is so that we can still be a functioning team. So just make sure you don't put other people in a bind and the rest of the team in a bind, because you're kind of covering up injuries or hoping they're going to go away. So you don't want to talk about them. I know I'm getting long-winded about this, but this is another important issue to bring up with parents at the beginning of the season. Last two things that I think are really important. Number one, to establish your level of authority and where your experience as a coach comes from, right? For me, I played Division I baseball. I played pro baseball thereafter, ran a travel academy, done all these different things. That just helps put people at ease. If you don't have a career like that, and say you didn't play ball as a kid and you're here as a volunteer, a well-meaning volunteer coach, I think it still makes sense to explain to people, hey, here's where I learned from. Here's like sort of my coaching background. Here's my philosophy. Here's some of the things that I'm doing to continue to be better for your kids, that I'm here to work hard, continue to learn the game. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm here because I care about giving them a great experience. And I'm still going to continue to work my butt off, learning from coaches on YouTube, reading books, whatever it is. But I think that helps put people at ease, that you're just not there just to lay down what you've already got, but that you're still growing along with the players. Like, if that was my kid's coach, I'd be like, cool, I appreciate that about you, that you're upfront with the fact that, hey, you weren't a college baseball player back in your day, but you're working really hard to be good at what you're doing right now. And I respect that, right? So just letting people understand where you're coming from, what your background is, goes a long way. And then number two, you need to make parents your allies. This is a really important thing as a coach. So what can you do to bring them into the fold and welcome them? Give them a sense of belonging. Make sure that they have a place at the table to an extent. Obviously, too many cooks in the kitchen ruins the broth or the dough or whatever the old metaphor is. And you won't be accepting all types of feedback from all types of people. But having parents involved, you want to create them, you want to create allies, and that's the biggest thing. So finding a way to make them feel like, hey, I do care about your opinion of what I'm doing, and I'm open to certain types of feedback. So letting them know that, I think, has its place in a policy meeting. So be sure to leave me a comment. What did I miss? What would you like me to cover? What are your thoughts on some of the policies I've laid out here? This is a really important thing for organization owners and for coaches. So don't overlook this. And remember, it's never too late to have one of these meetings. So if you haven't had one already this year, just grab parents and say, hey, now that we're a month in and we've kind of gotten our feet underneath us, I really want to have a meeting and talk about some policies going forward and some of the things that I want all of us to do to make sure we're successful. So it's never too late. And I hope that you have a great parent policy meeting in place this year, even if you didn't have one last year. All right. So thanks again for watching. Be sure to leave a comment, as I mentioned, and I'll see you here in the next video.